Hi, I'm Grady Collane in the CapeCod.com News Center, and welcome to Sunday Journal. I'm joined today with a special end-of-the-year segment with the Cape Symphony. We have a special guest joining us today. Do you mind introducing yourself for our listeners?
Sure thing, Grady. My name is Michael Albaugh. I'm the Executive Director of the Cape Symphony. Your Cape Symphony.
So we want to talk about so many different topics today that we couldn't even help ourselves. We were chatting a little bit off camera, a little bit off microphone before, but we just wanted to do a general kind of year-in review for the Cape Symphony, for arts across the Cape as general. I'm going to turn you in the spokesperson for a little while, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Particularly as we are now trying to put the height of COVID-19 behind us. So I wanted to kind of discuss the arts and entertainment industry in general with you. But just to kind of kick things off, do you mind highlighting for us a little bit more about some of the more recent things that we've touched on with December? We had our holiday special.
We had our holiday special, yeah. We sort of took a back-to-basics approach with that concert, and I want to give a special shout-out to Joe Marcio, who is the director of the Chatham Chorale, but Joe was also the assistant conductor of the Cape Symphony, and a lot of people didn't know that. And so when we were looking to the show, he had a program proposal that we shared internally, and then we shared it with the orchestra committee. The OC is a 5-member board group of musicians, and they kind of okayed through it. Like, yeah, this is kind of like let's just get back and make this about holiday. And it was a massive success. I was in my office today for the first time since before the holiday, and there was just letters everywhere, and just people loved the concept, loved the fact, they loved Joe. He's personable. His dialogue with our concertmaster and managing artistic principal Jay Cosmosley was just magical, and it was, we had a very wonderfully and festive, successful concert, and I give a special shout out to the people behind the scenes that help make that, like, Patrick Gallagher and his staff, sound engineers, and the musicians, everybody, more than I could probably even should name. It was a wonderful. My heart's still beaming with it.
That's awesome. I know it also had a Hanukkah special segment.
Yeah,
as well.
Our principal clarinetist, Mark Miller, cobbled together and crafted a really unique piece, and it was one... It had a lot of people. I think a lot of people were very deeply appreciative, and I think knowing that it was generated by somebody within our orchestra, somebody, Mark is a very talented individual, and he conducts our youth orchestra. So it just kind of makes it all feel more complete.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting that you have such deep ranks that you're able to pull from, like, internally for arrangements and for compositions.
Yeah.
Very interesting. But that is fantastic news as we're kind of wrapping. It is December 31st.
Mm-hmm.
So we are kind of now going to be saying goodbye to 2023. Hello,
bye,
2024.
2023.
Yeah. It's been a busy year for all of us, and we just wanted to kind of look back as well and ask you a little bit more specifically to the Cape Symphony. What were some of the major accomplishments, stuff you're proud of for this year?
That's a great question. From the nonprofit world, we're always happy when we close out a fiscal year on cue, which was always good. I think that as we're probably going to talk about a little bit here today too. We're in a bit of a transition. So the biggest fear was coming off of the beginning of that transition at the September concert. And then just seeing the mood change, because I would say that people are like, okay, who's this person? Who's this new guy? Because everything's changed, and it's not Jung Ho, and I know people we're kind of, change is hard. Let's just admit right here, everybody, change is difficult. We all know it, but change is necessary, and change is the only constant in our universe. Is what we can rely on is change, and trying to navigate that from an institutional standpoint was not without its challenges, but after the first concert, a lot of people rose to the occasion, and I know our orchestra. I wouldn't say that they're better. It was different. There was a musicality that came out with our guest Farhad, and it got amplified with our guest Byron. And then I think when Jay Cosmosley, our concertmaster and managing artistic principal, took over the concert for November, the Mozart show, I think there was a congealing. I think imagine, a player coach in a sporting league happen, and so following up with Joe's programming and brilliant work with the holiday concert, I feel very good about things. We still have 5 wonderful shows coming up. We hope to see everybody in attendance that cares, and we're looking forward to more of the same. It's our Passport to Hungary show is coming up, so that features guest conductor Kevin Fitzgerald. And we have the Robi Lakodos, straight from Hungary, coming over here. So it's going to be about as Hungarian as we can make it, and we're looking forward to it. So that's kicking it off. But yeah, it's exciting. You know, you don't ever want things to be complacent and boring, because it would be boring. It'd be dull. We like the excitement in our life. So
yeah, it's been a wide variety of guest conductors that have been going on for a while. We're, as you already mentioned, we're just kind of midway through that still. So there's a lot of exciting faces. Do you think that it's been enjoyable for the orchestra to be able to kind of get a taste of different leads, essentially?
I think that it is. And it is actually standard practice for an orchestra to have guest conductors come in. And we normally should have kept 2 guests a year. It is really good for an orchestra of our size. We do 9 full cycles plus summer programming. And having a guest or 2 every year, it changes the dynamic, and it keeps the lack of complacency, and it keeps the artistic vigor moving. And it's actually usually standard for most organizations. We just haven't done it as often as we should have. And I think it has a lot to say to our previous music director's commitment to the work. But in some ways, taking a week off or a concert off really does a lot for a lot of different reasons. And I think having a full season that way, where you have different individuals coming in and thinking differently about music. Music is such an ambiguous understanding of love and life and gifts and emotions and how each individual shapes those. And you think of a rainbow of colors, and one individual might want to come in here and say, hey, man, I really love purple. I'm going to push the purple. We're going to do the purple. And then the next guest comes in like, you know what? I want to do green. I'm going to focus on the green. That becomes sort of it's a bad analogy, but it is kind of how everybody approaches art is what makes art special. No 2 people approach things similarly. And that's, as a musician myself and a composer, I taught music theory, and we always tear apart the Beethoven piano sonatas. You come to love sonatas by Beethoven because he did so many incredible things within a system of common practice period harmony. And the way that he wrote was masterful. And so we have so many compilations where so many wonderful pianists have done all, like, Paul Good or Richard Good and Alfred Brendel, and they've all did the full book of every Beethoven piano sonata. And we always think and discuss which one played it better, who amplified it more. And from a theoretical standpoint, we always, we loved Alfred Brendel because he played things very much in tune with how it would work from an analytical standpoint. But Richard Good, to me, always delivered more passion. And so I wouldn't say one was better than the other. I would just say that they're different. And that's the genius, of what somebody like in the conducting role brings, is they're all going to bring their personality towards the preparation, the execution, and the interpretation. And that's what's fun about this season, is we have so many people providing their versions of who they are. And I think, I don't want to speak for the orchestra musicians themselves. They could be miserable and hating the whole process. But from what I've heard from the ones that do bring up, and they've been, I've heard a lot of positive, good things. And I think they have felt a synergy within themselves, because one of the focuses I had this season was I wanted to put the orchestra forward more. And that's, I think, what we're accomplishing.
Very interesting. For any disgruntled musicians out there with the Cape Symphony, our tip line you can find on capecod.com. We'd love to have you.
That's ccb.com, yeah.
Oh, goodness. But it is very interesting. We had Farhad Hudiev come in, actually, for a Sunday Journal segment. That is still up on capecod.com. Just want to push that real quick. But we do, he was very soft-spoken. And do you think that was it a little stressful because he's kicking off this first season? How do you pick the first guy to lead off the string of guests to come in?
I don't know. It was when you look at the dates and what was offered, some of them made choices based on what the programming was, depending on what options were available. Some of them, I don't think they worry about that, to be honest. I think there are some pieces that they want to conduct more than others. I would say that that's very true. But for him, when I just looked at sort of with the first show, and the first show was important because it is a season kickoff. And it's like, oh, this looks fabulous. I'll be happy. Yeah, he's soft-spoken and calm, and there was no conversation at all, and he was prepared. I mean, he played that the Eroica he did from memory, so he was more than prepared. Whether he's done that before, he's told me not, but he felt the orchestra was there and the principals were trustworthy to do so, and I think that really enhanced the magic of that experience.
All right, awesome. And once again, what's the January's coming up. What is the January show for people who aren't familiar?
It's at the end of the month, and is our Passport for Hungary series. We have a passport concert that we offer every season, and it is sort of a musical journey through the cultural landscape of a faraway land. And Hungary is the choice of this season. And I know that there's a we do a Artful Journeys, which is an organization that actually has a tour that's related to that. So if you look up Artful Journeys, you can learn more and participate in a tour of Hungary as a reaction to the concert.
Mm-hmm. All right, that is awesome. Now, while we were having a little bit of a discussion pre-game before the microphones were turned on, but as you're kind of talking more about 2024 and wanting to highlight all that you do with the Cape Symphony, we were just kind of touching on how many things you actually do. So for those who aren't familiar, do you mind kind of talking a little bit more about the merger and some of the stuff going on?
Yeah, I was one of the things from the holiday concert we did that was unique. It was we pulled together two aspects of the organization. We put the dance company, the Cape Symphony Dance Company, online, and so you got a chance to see the piece that they did. And then we also had on the Saturday shows, we brought the youth orchestra on stage, and they played Sleigh Ride, which was a piece that they were working on the exact instrumentation that they were doing for their concert the following week they did on our concert. So we thought, and since a number of the orchestra musicians actually work with the youth orchestra, like Mark Miller, who was the conductor of the youth orchestra, who was also our principal clarinetist, who also composed the Sleigh Ride piece, or did the arrangement, he thought, like, what would it be to bring that on here? And the orchestra is managed by Kyle Spraker, who is the principal trumpet. So we had a lot of advocates in the orchestra, and we felt that, like, bringing them on stage, doing a half bit, would give them an opportunity to perform. And that's something that's very rare, that youth orchestra musicians get a chance to perform on stage during the biggest holiday concert that we do, and to be a part of that show. And it was a transformative experience. So a lot of people would come out with questions, when like the dance, where did the dance come from? Like, well, that's our dance company, and that's the thing that people, I don't think they realize, is that, we merged with the Cape Cod Conservatory of Music and Arts in 2010. And we were the Cape Cod Symphony Orchestra. And through that merger, we inherited a collection of programs that we have always kind of navigated separately. And then after the pandemic, we decided to fix and structure the business so it could better collaborate with an organization. So previously we had two marketing directors and two financial structures, and now it's all one. And that actually gives us a chance to do these kinds of things. It helps unify the organization in a way that was never able to be unified before, which is why we dropped the conservatory name. Mm-hmm. We didn't change the programming, we just rebranded the programming. Mm-hmm. And that sometimes gets a little confusing to people because it's the Cape Symphony. The organization is Cape Arts and Entertainment. Mm-hmm. We do business as the Cape Symphony. If you look us up, that's how we're registered as a not-for-profit. So we brand the Cape Symphony program separated so they still feel unified to the organization. So Cape Symphony Preschool. A lot of people don't realize we have a preschool. We have a very successful preschool. We have a very strong curriculum. It does Suzuki violin. It has music and art and dance is part of it. And so the fact that we have this offering, and it's a very successful offering that we provide, and it's very unique to our organization, it never had that past. And I think the biggest thing I learned was after the pandemic, I remember Ann Koulis, who has been the preschool director for us for the past 15 years, and she met Amy Medeiros, who's been our box office manager for almost the last 18 or 19 years. And a lot of people who know these two individuals, there was a meeting that happened in the lobby, and they had met each other personally for the first time. And I thought, you've never met after 15 years in the same institution, they've never met because their programs never crossed paths.
Oh, sure.
With us moving into the West Barnstable, we were able to actually kill two birds with one stone in that position because now, the box office is there, and, she's in the preschool at least every couple weeks taking pictures and highlighting their newsletters, and they can speak more eloquently about the programming because that cross-collaboration is happening. So it has been a huge benefit, I think, for everybody that works at the Symphony to see how the programmings interact and I think more successfully. And I think, when Kyle came forward with the youth orchestra performing and the dance company being a part, that might not have happened in the past. So that's the benefits of the structure now. And the fact that, the orchestra, it's only half of what we do. When you compile everything else, that's the other half. And it is a very important aspect that the institution has, is that we have this diversification of programming. And as a cultural art organization, that benefits us. It means more opportunities for people to connect and communicate with the institution, and it gives us more of an opportunity to work more broadly with the community, whom we work strongly with, and we have a lot of admiration for because of their support for what we do artistically to the culture.
Mm-hmm. I'm also noticing the Cape Symphony youth to professional musician pipeline that you've developed as well.
It's kind of what we're working with. We've always felt that the preschool, because the preschool in the 4th and 5th age, 4 and 5 year olds, they have Suzuki training. So every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, they have individual lessons, which they meet with Yoko Wainen, who is an amazing teacher. And I've never met a more dedicated individual. She works with every one of them. There could be as many as 30, 35 kids, getting individual lessons. And then they have sort of a larger group meeting at the end. And then when we do at the end of each semester, they have their own little concert, and they play their violin, and it's all rote. So we asked ourselves, after they're 5 and they age out of the preschool, what do we do with them? So our education team has been working hard to actually create a program that takes them from year to year, so we can actually take them all the way to the preschool, to the youth orchestra age. So you could start with violin at 4 years old in the Cape Symphony preschool and migrate through the Cape Symphony education programs, and then hopefully someday make your audition to the Cape Symphony Youth Orchestra. And that way we're carrying them all the way and go to college, get a degree, and stay close to them, and hopefully maybe someday play in the Cape Symphony Orchestra.
Mm-hmm. That's very interesting.
So,
has this all been going on long enough to actually have some people in the Cape Symphony now?
Not yet, but ask me again in 10 years.
We're working on it.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That'd be very interesting. I would love to maybe at some point, and we'll both be old and haggard at that point. But have whoever that first is to have come full circle.
I want to tell you about Billy. And Billy joined us in 2022, and now here we are in 2048. Grady, I can't believe we're still doing this.
Well,
but he is a fine violinist. And
yeah, we'll see. We'll see where we are at that point.
It'd be fantastic, and we will be chained to these microphones. Yeah. We'll be able to. They'll have to keep us upright. No, but that is very interesting. So as well, we keep talking about the since COVID. Now, as well, I wanted to talk at this very general kind of what it's been like for arts on the Cape, arts and music. I know you can't necessarily speak for every artistic group on Cape Cod, but as one of the largest temple organizations in that sphere, what was it like? Do you think we're fully back yet? Do you think we still have some challenges?
Yeah, we do still have some challenges. It's funny because we had a committee meeting earlier for our search committee, and one of our principal hornist, Clark Matthews, was just getting over COVID, and he literally led that. I just walked right into it with the singers behind me. He's a French horn player, and just and came down with about a COVID, and Rob Hoveland, who is principal trombone, who's on the committee, mentioned he just got a shot, and I did mine in September, and they mostly said that they're working with a lot of different orchestras. As it's a per service group, so musicians play with a lot of groups. And they, in some circumstances, said none of the other groups are testing. We're still testing. We test musicians before every first rehearsal, and then usually the Saturday of the cycle. So there's a peace of mind that nobody is testing positive before doing a concert weekend. So we don't run into a mass spreader event. And I heard that I won't name the group, but another group, a larger group than us, had that where several members got sick. If you lose a member of the orchestra, you're like losing a component to your car. It's like your principal oboe may not be there. It's like, might as well lose your carburetor. The car doesn't run the same, so trying to find subs to get them in here, and then rehearsing as a group. And
are there seconds like in theater?
Let's move this analogy to the NFL. And as you know, I'm a huge Minnesota Vikings fan, and when Kirk Cousins went down, Josh Dobbs came in, and then we had another one that came in and lasted out tunes, and then we had Nick Mullins, who's now the quarterback changes. But the team is a good team, but when you get a different quarterback, a lot of things change because the quarterbacks have to adapt and adjust. And so they may win a game, they may not lose a game, but they're not going to be the team that they were. And look at the Jets. The New York Jets is a prime example. Aaron Rodgers is out, and the entire team's been trying to figure it out. It happens to the orchestra. The orchestra's a team, and they all work and rely, and they're all the principals lead their sections, and there is a homogeneity that happens all at once that the conductor has to drive. And if you lose a component, or if one of your principals aren't there, it becomes a little bit more difficult. It's like losing Justin Jefferson for 4, 5, 6, 7 games with a hamstring issue. It affects our offense.
And it's very interesting. So that's just from like the mechanical standpoint of like testing and going on forward. But what about culturally as well when it comes to getting maybe viewership, people getting butts in seats again? Do you think things?
I don't
are
think
just different?
that has not affected us in the sense that it was. I would say that we are not where we were in pre-COVID numbers, and to the point where I've just decided. And I know a lot of organizations in the league are saying, it's not time to look at 2019 anymore. It's time to start looking at post-COVID on. And since COVID has happened, we've seen our numbers improve. And our numbers this year are better than our numbers were last year. And that's an encouraging sign. We would still like to see every concert sell out, but knowing that the holiday concert, I think we sold out 3 of the 6, and 2 more were nearly sold out. We had one which didn't sell as well. It sold still over 1,000 seats, but a lot of that has to do with the time of day too. It's Friday night, and that one always struggles because of the time of the concert. If we offered all matinees, then it'd be a different story. It's it's just the time and what people choose to do, and that's typical for orchestras.
Sure, that's very interesting. Actually, I know that for TV there's the Friday night death slot because anything
nobody's
scheduled
watching on
then.
Friday. Right, Thursday was the prime slot. Yeah, orchestra the same way. When I was with the Philadelphia Orchestra, they changed their schedule to accommodate a Friday matinee and then a Saturday evening performance, and then they added, I think, 12 Sunday. They have a 43-week season, so they added like 10 or 12 Sunday matinees. And they saw a pickup because a lot of people would rather see an orchestra concert on a Sunday afternoon than on a Saturday night. And that's an interesting tell of how we pay attention to our market. And we definitely see that too, that our Sunday concerts almost always sell out, and our Saturday concerts, there's usually a little room to give. It depends on what we're programming to.
That's very interesting. And you also, I mean, I don't want to bore the audience too much, but I'm very data-driven myself when it comes to these things, and I'm always fascinated by the. I assume for the marketers that you have on your team and trying to plan out some stuff, it's just a nightmare because you just have to throw out a lot of stuff from 2019 and 2022 just because it's so atypical of a year.
Yeah.
It's just an outlier you can't count anymore.
Yeah.
So is it tough for them to kind of just like start from ground zero essentially?
I mean, the nice thing is we have a wonderful record of data that we've collected over the last 20 years, and I credit Amy Medeiros for that. She, I include her on all programming conversations because she tells you what worked and what didn't work, and she has an understanding of our public better than most because she's lived her whole life and she's worked with our clientele. And we used to always joke that after the music director's public image, she was the most popular person here because everybody, like, I've watched people come in. I always stand guard at the door saying hi and greeting people, and people have to, I gotta go say hi to Amy, and then she does because they buy her tickets, and she can tell you she knows them. Like, it's not like they're just a customer. She knows who they are. Oh, that's Betty. Betty's been part of the orchestra for 18 years, and she just rattle off these details that are just amazing, and so she has a sense of what she likes. If you read our newsletter, and please, if you don't read our newsletter, please collect our newsletter. Our newsletter at capesymphony.org. Everything I talk every week, put a letter in there. We try to keep everybody up to date with what's going on from the institution through all of our programs. So it's a good place, and it goes out every Wednesday at 10. It's very, very religious on time. A few weeks ago, we're doing Pops programming for next season. We decided to ask the public, what would you want to hear? And we sort of gave them a handful of questions about Pops programming. We got almost 500 responses in the first 8 hours. And I was blown away by how many people had an opinion and shared it and offered what they liked. And we learned, that our public is not a big fan of certain pieces over other pieces. And I won't leave those out the point on. But, it had a huge influence on what we're programming. So next year's Pops programming is really a direct result of what do the people want and what do they like. And we really went down to the path to the point where even our concertmaster and assistant conductor, Jay Cosmos Lee and Joe Marcio, are creating a special program based on those survey results. And that's how I think an institution should be. We need to listen. We have to listen to what people say. And it doesn't mean that we always agree, or it doesn't mean that there's a comprehension of how things work and function, because sometimes people say, you need to do this. And it's like, yeah, we can't do that for X, Y, and Z. And there's
licensing.
Licensing is, so there's some reasons we have to be careful. But, when we ask questions where we know that we can have a population express their opinions and affect the decision, like what we did with that survey, we did. And to that point on, the Cape Symphony, coming out of COVID and getting restructured, and we feel we're in a very strong and stable place. It's time to do strategic planning and start thinking about the next 3 to 8, 10 years. And so our board vice chair is leading the charge and working with a town consultant, and we are literally going to start that point where we start canvassing and surveying the community, those that care for the symphony and those that may not have any knowledge of the symphony, and start doing some focused questions and interviews and data collection about how they perceive us, what we could do better, what we could be doing differently, how we can better serve the community. And of course, we know that through our programming and what we offer is diverse, but is there something that we may not offer that we could offer? And and I think it just gives us a better sense. So if you listen to this and you check in, please check in. I'll be talking about it in the newsletter messages starting in January, where we want to get more of an opportunity to get a sense of what you think of the Cape Symphony and what you would like to see more about the Cape Symphony. And honestly, after that POPs questionnaire, I was just blown away. There's like so many people in 8 hours. We had a board meeting and we literally were compiling it just for the board meeting that evening, just to get the information out there, because it was just such wonderful information, and that's always important. Dialogue and conversation goes a long way.
Sure. I won't ambush you with data questions this time around, but I'd love to know what was the statistically, what composers are always hits and which ones are just stinkers. Which concerts just people no one's interested in Mozart, Symphony No. 5 or what have you.
Yeah, Mozart is always a big hit, and it's always complicated because musicians have their own lists.
Oh.
And there's, of course, things that they want to do versus things that people want to hear.
I assume they like the more the fun technical things to play, possibly, or
they like them. I don't want to speak for them, but I would guess that from things that I've been told, I hope so. Things that I've been told, they want larger, more meatier, more substantial pieces. That's normal. They want to really put forth the strongest, best performance of we call certain staple pieces war horses for a reason, because these are pieces that are in the canon and they get performed by orchestras every year for a reason, because they need to be performed and they need to be forwarded. And so they lean towards those types of programming, and because we're such a broad institution where we have masterpieces and pops concerts, there's some people would prefer really want to do the masterpieces, and then some people that I would find just doing the pops, but they're very different animals, and you have to approach them differently, and how you program them is unique, and of course how you pair them. There's always traditional. You lead off with an overture, and you give the warm-up piece, and then you hit the big meaty warhorse in the second half, and how you program those to actually tease people in. It's like when you go to a restaurant. You want to have a good, amuse-bouche, beautiful salad, and then lead to the main course and fare with the dessert. Which would be your encore. So the pairing's the same way. If you get a bad salad, you're not going to feel good about the dinner. So how you want the salad to lead into the dinner, and chefs have that approach to setting a prefix meal. Conductors have a very similar approach. They're just trying to tease it out artistically, and everybody's different. There's no right or wrong answer. It's really how much they can make it happen, and then how well they sell it. Frankly,
Understandable.
The dialogue behind that.
Yeah. Now, unfortunately, we've been doing this recording and shooting this before lunch. So now that I'm good and starving with that metaphor that you have,
I'm very sorry.
You forced upon me, Mike. So you're talking about these 10-year plans, even 3 years plans. We do kind of have that elephant in the room of we did have Jung Ho Pak, the previous artistic director who has departed, and is now left a seat vacant that you're trying to fill. So I was hoping to just kind of get the general view of how that timeline is going. Have who has applied? I don't know if you can say specific details, but are you starting to narrow it down? What's the plans again?
Yeah, that's a great question, and thank you for asking. Yeah, we've had a couple hundred applications. It's a very coveted position, and a lot of people are interested, and a lot of people with a very broad and diverse background. So it's very exciting for us and the committee. Moreover, it's we had a meeting this morning as we're prepping. We have a number of candidates that will be interviewed in small segments over the next 2 days. And our goal is to try to, we've got this pool down to about 25%, and our goal is to get it to, the top 5%. That's our goal. So it's moving forward. It's going well. It's been great working with everybody brings a really wonderful piece to the table, and I think the process has been positive from my experience. And I'm looking forward to seeing what we can work out. I know once we get to this quarter, we have to start then having a lot of talks, and then we want to have a second round or maybe even a third round of more in detail meetings, and then hopefully get to about 3 to 4 candidates for to invite to the community so the community can meet.
Mm-hmm. It's very interesting. So, just for people who aren't really familiar or who haven't been plugged into the Cape Symphony as much, what is that role's job, day to day, and also maybe the cultural impact? Because we can also kind of talk about how they somewhat become a little bit of a face for the organization.
Yeah, they do. They become a face for the organization because it's the orchestra, which is it's a big part of what we are and who we are and what we do, and working with the community is important. So we don't want an individual that's simply just a strong conductor or artistic presence. We want somebody that cares about what we do as an institution as a whole. We want somebody that cares about our community. We want somebody that wants to meet and work with our community and not just go, give talks, but integrate and work together. And I think finding that individual that, in some ways they need to care about the institution. I don't think any of us are looking for an individual that this is just a gig, that they come in and while they're doing other things, but they come in here because they care about the health, the well-being, what our potential is, and helping us realize that potential.
Now, we're afraid about coming up on time, but I also wanted to ask in general, what do you think the read is essentially by the community in terms of its appreciation of the arts? Is the Cape different? Is there some kind of hidden secrets that you want this artistic director to know going forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. Our community loves the orchestra. That is definitely apparent in every, I think more so than I ever anticipated when I arrived on the Cape in 2020. They are very involved. They care deeply, and it's not just because we're a source of entertainment. I think they feel like it's if you go to Boston and you tell them, say something bad about the Patriots, and you're basically going to get thrown out. Our public is that way, especially here on the Cape. It's their orchestra, and they're lucky and excited, and they're worrying about our future. Not worrying about our future. They're thinking about our future. Concerned, I wouldn't even say concerned. Invested. They're invested in our future as much as we are. And I love that. I stand, if you go to a concert and you walk in right when you get past the ticket booth before will call, you see me standing there. And I have gotten to know a number of people, and there are certain people that come to every concert, and they come in here and tell me everything they're thinking. And I have one whose name shall remain nameless, but he is a member of the Rotary. I belong to the Rotary here in Hyannis, and he always has a comment for me after every concert. And we jive and joke with each other because it's always something that's, critical, can't be fixed. It was the reality. It's just the nature of things. There was
scathing review.
Yeah, there was one show he left where he actually came up to me. He's like, Michael, I don't have any comments. Great show. And I was like, I can't believe it. Something's wrong,
Whoa.
But I, if I could count, there's probably about 20 or 30 people that come up and say something to me after the same people every show, and I love it. It makes me laugh because afterwards, they care. They're invested and they care, and the fact that they want to tell me what their thoughts, I welcome it. Even if it's something negative or something that they thought was wrong, or they're angry or frustrated about something, I need to hear it. And if I at least explain why the decisions are being made, if I can, and the reality that we're up against, because a lot of times people don't know the realities. That's.
They don't know about the principal oboist who's gotten COVID or whatever.
Yeah, there's always something that changes, and it's it's a fluid environment. But regardless of what happens and what obstacles, we are putting forth great concerts. We have talented musicians that care. We have a wonderful staff. Everybody they believe in the institution, and that's what matters. I want somebody that believes in the institution.
Well, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation.
Absolutely.
It has been a pleasure, especially with this New Year's kind of a year in review, specialness to it. So I just want to say thank you again for joining us in studio.
Thanks, Grady. Thank you, and thank you all for the continued support of the Cape Symphony.
I'm Grady Colleen, and this has been Sunday Journal.